Okay, got it. All right. So again, thank you all for being here today for our #Career Ready on higher education and mental health. I'm grateful to have some friends joining us today. I feel like I'm just kind of sitting down for a reunion. So I'm not quite as prepared as today. I feel like I'm just kind of sitting down. It's okay. It's okay. Got it? Okay, perfect. So we have just some general questions. How many of you all have you been to a #Career Ready event before? Okay, I thought I recognized a couple faces. So we just have some questions that we are asking our alums. You'll have an opportunity to share or ask questions of them if you would like. I typically just round robin it based on how you are appearing on my screen. So right now I've got Amanda, Ash Babs. Are you Ashley's okay if I call you Ash Babs and Jonesy? Does that work? Dr. Jones?
I prefer Dr. Jones. No, I'm just kidding. Jones is fine.
Okay, Dr. Jones.
No, Jonesy's good. I'm just messing.
Okay, so Amanda, Ash Babs, Lisa, Haley, and then Dr. Jones. I'm going to call you Dr. Jones now. Yeah, so we'll go in that order. If you would just share a little bit about who you are, when you graduated from Georgetown, what your major was, and then what you're doing now. So Amanda, we'll let you start.
Perfect. Thank you, Kate. And hi, everyone. Good to see you. And I just want to say thank you for showing up for yourself today and investing in yourself by being here. So my name is Amanda Brown. I graduated from Georgetown in 2008. I was a business marketing major and comm studies minor. I was a volleyball student athlete as well. And I'm currently serving as the Assistant Athletic Director for Student Athlete Development and Professional Advancement in the University of Kentucky Athletics Department. Hence the nice blue wall behind me. Good to see you all.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Babladelis. I also graduated in 2008. I was a psychology major. And when I was at Georgetown, I was really involved with residence life and campus ministry programs and a bunch of other stuff. So it's great to see you all today. I'm so excited to see some familiar faces on this panel and look forward to chatting more with you. Oh, and I'm currently serving, I'm coming to you from Concord, New Hampshire. I am a academic mentor at New England College.
And what's the temperature there today, Ash?
We are at a nice 48 degrees right now.
Oh,
Surprisingly warm, I know. But there is still snow on the ground, don't worry.
All right, Lisa.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Lisa McElfresh, and I graduated from Georgetown in 2005 with a double major in math and communication media studies. And I currently serve as the Assistant Director and Co-op Manager in the Career Services Office at Northern Kentucky University.
Thanks, Lisa. Haley.
Hello, I'm Haley Price. I graduated from Georgetown College in 2018. I was a psychology major, a child development minor, and I was involved in a host of things like Christian Scholars, the honors program, Kappa Delta sorority. And I am currently an outpatient therapist in Lexington. I live in Georgetown and work in Lexington, so I'm still close.
Great, thanks for joining us today, Haley. Dr.
Hey, y'all.
Jones.
I'll refrain from making us do an icebreaker right now, but I will say that Georgetown College is where that all started. So, but yes, hi, Ashley Jones. I was a business management major and communication minor. I graduated in 2006, which sounds like 4 decades ago. I'm currently the Director of Student Affairs for the full-time MBA program at the University of Texas at Austin, in which it's going to be 92 degrees here today. That's cruel for April, even for Austin. I'll stop going down memory lane, but I was a pretty involved student leader as well. Was involved in FIMU and intramurals and I think everything. And I actually had no idea that student affairs was a career. So we'll get more into that later, but good to see you all. Appreciate you being here.
Great, thanks so much. All right, so just now for a feel of who's in the room, because I think that's helpful for you all to know kind of who you're speaking to. And we will start with the very obvious. How many of y'all are here for Nexus credit? Don't be shy. It's okay. All right. So how many, was it Nexus, CEP? Like we've had a host of different generations of what is Nexus. So no shame in that thing. How many of you all are interested in hearing maybe about higher education as a career? And it's okay if you say you aren't interested in that. Great, wonderful. How about the mental health aspect of what Haley might share? We also, I'm gonna just go ahead and do a little spoiler alert. Ashley Babladelis, your master's was in counseling and higher education, so a little bit of a combination of those two. So you kind of not directly served in some of those roles in your higher ed career, but have some insight there as well. So more of the mental health counseling aspect. Perfect. And seniors, juniors, sophomores, freshmen, awesome. We've got the whole scope here today, so that's always exciting. Also grateful for my colleague Olivia Coleman-Dunn joining us. She will have a question for you as well. But Olivia, if you want to say any greetings to our guests this morning before we dive into the questions.
Good morning, ladies. This is an awesome all-star lineup, and I just thank you all for giving your time, talent, and treasure. I'm particularly excited about this session today. I think that in the climate that we're in now, right now with higher education and just the importance of mental health services, I'm really looking forward to hearing what you all have to say about your career paths. And I hope that you maybe can even share some advice with our students just about how to manage their own mental health and why personal care and boundaries are important. But with that being said, looking forward to hearing more from you all. But thank you all for joining us today.
Great. Well, we'll start with our first question. And so we'll go in the same order, but often what happens is, oh man, I so resonate with what that person just said. So that's totally okay. Or if you want to piggyback, we can go back and forth. But share with us what your greatest takeaway from Georgetown, what you've learned that has impacted you the most. So what's been your one Georgetown life lesson, professional lesson that has impacted you the most? Amanda.
Perfect. And I actually, when I was reflecting on this, I have two. So I won't take up the space for you, but I just feel like I couldn't not share both. But the first being of just how important relationships are. I mean, I feel like at Georgetown, you have such a unique opportunity to build really incredible relationships with the best and brightest, whether that's your professors or faculty, whether that's your peers, right? Your teammates, your sorority sisters, fraternity brothers. I mean, whatever that looks like to you, the community that is fostered at Georgetown is so special, and you have such a great opportunity to build a community that can stay with you for a lifetime if you want it. I remember I didn't go back and get my master's until I had been 7 years after I graduated undergrad. And because I built such a great relationship with Dr. Cooper in the department, I was able to go back to him and rely on him for a letter of recommendation, even after all of those years. So I just think that because of the size of Georgetown, like you just have such an opportunity to really lean into that community. So I encourage you to do that. The other thing too is just the liberal arts education that you're able to get while you're at Georgetown. It really kind of fuels a sense of curiosity and allows you just to kind of like ask questions and explore and really challenge yourself in the way you think. And that has, I've realized that later in life, but how well that's really served me and really kind of allowed me to lean in to ask questions and not be afraid to be curious. And Georgetown really provides that space and encourages you to do that.
Amanda, I'll piggyback on you talking about relationships. That's definitely a key takeaway for myself as well. I really enjoyed the opportunity at Georgetown to be at a small place where I felt like I was known, where I felt like there were folks that really had a lot of time to dedicate towards mentoring me. And that was how I learned about higher education, because before attending college, I didn't realize that it was a whole world of possibility. So definitely just want to encourage as much as you can to build relationships with folks while you're at school. And another like very concrete piece of advice that I got when I was a student at Georgetown was to not go to graduate school and take on additional debt. There are a lot of really awesome opportunities within the higher education world where you can attend a graduate program and possibly have your housing covered For myself, I had a tuition waiver, I had health insurance, and a stipend. And that was back in 2008, which feels like forever ago. But that was a really concrete piece of advice that I still find myself sharing with students that I work with today. So just wanted to put that out there.
Great advice.
Yeah, I similarly had a trouble narrowing down like one lesson. Shoot, Faith, that was a hard, tall order. I think number one, surround yourself with good people. As other people mentioned, the relationships that you build are going to be key to your success. And that continues beyond Georgetown. I think that there, the professors poured into me. Many a times I sat outside of Dr. Leverence's office in the math department, who was the chair, waiting for that door to open for those office hours, because she was my lifeline. And she was the person that I needed to chat, not just about the quadratic equation that I couldn't figure out, but also about life. Like I've got this problem and I need to chat with somebody. And there were so many others. But the people that are there for you are so important. But then also you need to be there for others, and taking that forward with you in life, and how you can be a mentor and an encourager to others, even today as students. You never know who's looking up to you and who's learning from your example. And then the second, because I also had to add a second one on there are amazing opportunities that you will have the chance to engage in. Take part in them. Don't be afraid to try something new and to see where it might take you. I was on a plane for the first time at Georgetown. I saw the ocean for the first time at Georgetown. I was out of the country for the first time at Georgetown. Like so many, and those are like pivotal things. Like there were also small things. So take advantage of that study abroad trip, or do that internship that you're like, oh, how's it going to fit with my schedule? Go to that organizational meeting. Try out that, what do you call them now? Nexus event, CEP. I'm still CEP to me, but try out that event that you're like, oh, I don't think that's me. Go to it. Try it out, because you're never going to have this opportunity again in your life.
I'm going to kind of piggyback off of everything that was just said, and kind of tie it together a little bit. One of my biggest takeaways from Georgetown was developing relationships with others, but also my relationship with myself. For the first time I was away from my family. I was just an hour and a half away, but it felt far. I was with new friends, meeting new people, being able to present myself different than the small town that I grew up in, going to school with the same people since kindergarten. And I was really able to figure out, who am I independent of all of these other people that have been defining factors for me, and really develop a relationship with myself and a strong core that then was able to carry me further. What I was able to take into grad school and into my career, knowing who I am and how I present myself, how I want to present myself. And then it really helps me specifically in mental health, because I work with new clients all the time. And I have to be very clear in who am I and the message that I'm presenting, so that my interactions with them aren't about me figuring that out. I'm already there, and I can have it focused on helping them and encouraging them. So that would, if I try to narrow down, like everyone said, it's so hard because you spend so much pivotal time there. But that would be what I would narrow down to my biggest takeaway.
What they said, and I'll try to add just a small nugget. This is the bad part about going last, and I won't just belabor it, but I will say that I think Georgetown laid a really positive foundation for me. I've had, even coming back to this panel, like brings back some feelings coming back to Georgetown and like what that means, because there's also some things that were really not great for me while I was there, but by and large, super positive. And I would say that for me, it's very easy to surround yourself with a lot of alikeness at Georgetown, for better or worse, just based on geography, based on the type of institution, being a private institution. The things that I just didn't necessarily, even though I was for sure, it sounds negative, but it's not. Even though I certainly grew a ton at Georgetown. I think the biggest lesson is that it doesn't end in 4 years. You're not going to have it all figured out by the time you're a senior, no matter how many Nexus events you go to, I promise. And if you do feel like you're figuring it out, then we're not doing our job as educators. So to, again, just echo the points about being challenged and being okay with the uncomfortable and the unknown, that's something I struggled a ton with. I thought I had to have it all figured out, had to have it all together, have my 5-year plan to be able to go to that. And I floundered a lot. So feel free to, I'll happy to share whatever that is, but I will say that it all works out. And I think that the relationship piece, I still draw on a ton, and I'm super grateful for just the caring, nurturing environment Georgetown provides. And it certainly has shaped how I am as an administrator in a lot of ways.
Great. Thanks so much. And we will mix it up because I have learned that it is hard to always be the one to go last and not say ditto. But before we move on to the next question, does anyone here in the room have any follow-ups for any of our panelists? Any questions? Dying to know more? Okay, so we will start with you then, Dr. Jones, on the next question, which is tell us a little bit about that professional and personal journey. What would you tell your college age self, knowing what you know now? I think often, like you said, it doesn't end at 4 years. So sometimes it's that first job, that first launch that either is great. Amanda shared about how it was 7 years before she went back to graduate school. So, you know, there's a lot of things that probably happen. So whatever you're willing to share personally, professionally, because we know those things are so interrelated. So we'll start with you, Ashley.
Sure. I will. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we need to like have a beer and sit down and have a conversation to really talk about it. But I'll try to say it in a professional 2-minute spiel. Is that, so I majored in business. I worked in marketing after I graduated. It was miserable. I was like the only person under the age of 50 in my office. And I felt like I was in timeout constantly. So I'll say that. And I was just struggling with figuring out what was next. I actually got connected with an alum of Georgetown that I didn't actually know during my time at Georgetown. She's still in higher ed and is and kind of connected me to thinking about higher education. And she was like, you were involved in you're excited about this. We've kind of seen this in you all along. And I was like, my first thought was, well, why didn't we talk about this when I was in school? So good for y'all for coming to these panels. I will say that I don't think this happened, or I didn't show up. So that was on me. But told me about the master's program at University of Louisville, which instantly I was like, ew, I only like UK. Like we don't go to Louisville to hang out with people there. So again, worldview getting stretched. And I got my master's in a counseling-based program in college student personnel, worked in Greek life and student activities. And I fell in love, like all the pieces started to connect a little bit more. And I realized, oh, and I definitely echo what Ashley says about don't take on debt. It's not worth it. So Louisville paid me. I had a job while I was there, and I didn't totally know what I wanted to do, but I knew that at the end of the day, I was furthering my education and not going into debt. So it seemed like an okay thing to do. I'm echoing. Anyway, then I worked at Wake Forest, which is in North Carolina, for 5 years. I did a lot of student staff selection and training and campus-wide programming, and then started thinking a little bit more about what was next. I looked at PhD programs all over the country. I'm the first person in my family to go to college, so to be thinking about going to get my PhD was totally a foreign concept. But my mentors from my master's program really kind of pushed me to think about that, because I knew that ultimately I wanted to maybe be able to teach, and that I really loved higher ed. So again, the money thing was the key thing. So I applied all over, and I got a job working in housing, which was, I was so over it, but I got to get my PhD without getting any debt in one of the most expensive cities in the country. So I count it as a win, and have been working in higher ed for about a while. And that's it. Mostly just kind of, again, opening up, being open to opportunities as they come, but also not just sitting back and waiting for them to happen, because that's not going to happen either. So leverage your network, ask questions, show up, and ultimately do good work and be a positive person to work with. I would say kind of throughout my career in higher ed, that's been pretty transformative.
Is there anything you would tell your college age self?
I think probably what I mentioned at the beginning, just that you don't have to have it all figured out, but ultimately, like, you have to, it's a balance of finding your passion, your vision. We love talking about vocation, especially at Christian colleges like Georgetown, which is super important, but ultimately like you need to pay your bills too. So balancing that, something that, and it doesn't have to be, I'm still discovering my career and what's next. If I'm going to be in administration, I'm going to be a faculty member, I'm going to go into private and corporate world. There's options. So you have to kind of just figure out what's right for the next step, rather than thinking of like being overwhelmed by thinking about it for the next 30 years of your life. And the liberal arts education really does prepare you well for that. I kind of cringe sometimes, especially being at there's 60,000 students at the University of Texas at Austin, and they get locked in so quick, especially as undergrads having to be on a track. They have to declare their major when they apply to college. And every time I'm like, ugh, I feel like I'm Georgetown judging them constantly, but also there's pros and cons. We can debate later. But that is one, I think, huge benefit of going to an institution like Georgetown, is being able to explore and ask questions and that be okay, but also balance that with, you know, deciding how you care for yourself and your family.
Great, thank you so much.
Sure.
Haley, we'll go backwards. So Haley, you're up next.
Okay, so a bit about my kind of professional, personal journey. Like I said, I graduated in 2018, stayed in Georgetown because I married my college sweetheart and we just kind of camped down. Started grad school at UK in the fall of 2018, so I just rolled right on into it. I got my master's of social work and I graduated in May of 2020. So all of you that are in college and have been experiencing like school in pandemic, I did a bit of that. And then I just got the first job that I could get because I had interviewed for it prior to the world shutting down. And I started working in community mental health. And shortly after starting working for community mental health, I found out I was pregnant. So I had my beautiful baby girl in January of 2021, had to go back to work 6 weeks postpartum. And really struggled with my own personal mental health, which became a big part of my professional journey. I realized very quickly that the balance that I had that was not balanced was not going to work. It was not sustainable. And I made a decision to start looking for what other options were out there. I found the private practice that I'm at now, and I totally switched focuses. So I was in community mental health, primarily working with kids. And now I primarily work with adults, a lot of college students and a lot of mamas, but everyone. And kind of in this process of personal growth and figuring out how to set personal and professional boundaries, I really realized a passion that I have for working with adults, which if you had asked me when I was at Georgetown, I would have sworn up and down would never, ever happen. I was only going to work with the little ones, spent all of my time doing everything I could child development wise with Dr. Bell. But then I got out to there in the real world and I realized that I could help children so much by helping parents. And I can help just growing individuals by helping college students. And there's so much going on for college students, especially in a pandemic. So I know you guys are all different years there at Georgetown, so you've had different experiences, but I know some of you came into college without having like 2 solid normal years of high school. So there's just kind of all of that to say there's just so much going on for everyone. And what I would really tell my college self is to be open to the kind of waves of life, to be open to the continued growth and the continued learning process. Because like I said, I would have sworn I was never going to work with adults. It intimidated the heck out of me because I said, I am a kid still. I can't help adults. But then as my position in life has changed, as my passions have changed, my perspective on that has changed. And I'm thankful that I had that education from Georgetown that was well-rounded. And with my master's program, I had experience all around so that I was able to make that job change. But I would just tell myself, who was in college so very stuck on one idea, to keep your mind open to all the possibilities and just figure out your next step, because your career can have so many different iterations and can look so different just based on your different phase of life.
Great insights. Thank you for sharing some of that personal journey that's impacted you professionally. I think that's so important to think about as we are growing and learning and constantly shifting. I'm actually going to ask Ashley Bablodelis, would you be okay to go next?
Sure.
And we'll swing back to Lisa and then Amanda.
Sure. So I found myself my senior year feeling really confused on what I wanted my next steps to be. And like some of the other panelists have talked about, feeling this pressure, like I have to have it all figured out. So just to share with you my steps, I got into graduate school the week of graduation. I was on the wait list. And I was getting that question from everyone, what's next? What's next? I was like, I'm trying to figure that out. Thanks. So I got into a master's program that was a counseling program with a focus on, like a cohort focus on college counseling and student development. So what I was torn about, senior year, I took a counseling skills class with Dr. Price. I don't know if she's still teaching that or not. I think there are some psych majors in the room, maybe. But I loved the counseling skills class. I had an opportunity to have an internship with a mental health counselor right down on Main Street. And I would go and work in the office and really got some great exposure and was still feeling torn. Do I want to work in higher education or do I want to maybe pursue counseling? So I chose the counseling program because I thought that it had a little bit more general skills that several mentors at Georgetown shared with me. You will be able to use those counseling skills even if you aren't doing direct counseling. So that was the path that I took. And I'm going to be honest with you all that while I was in graduate school, I had doubts and questions. Is this the right program for me? Should I stay in this program? I ultimately decided to stick it out. It was a really, really hard 2 years. But I grew a ton and it really stretched me in just so many ways that I think about the world and people. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity. I can say that on the outside. But when I was in the program, I just want you to know that if you decide to go to graduate school after college and you're having doubts, I think that that's a normal thing and it's okay. So after graduate school, which I did at University of North Carolina at Greensboro, Jonesy and I were actually connected because we were in North Carolina around the same time. So that was a fun connection for Georgetown. But after my master's program, I ended up coming back and working at Georgetown, which was a really incredible opportunity. I felt like I knew the place and I loved the place, but I also, because I had gone to a larger school for graduate school, I had a really different perspective on so many different things. And so it was really fun to come back and to bring kind of some different perspectives. And I worked as an area coordinator for a couple of years. And then as life works out, I ended up following my partner who was going to work on his graduate program. So another piece I think that can be challenging is you might have a set of goals, and depending on your family situation, you also might need to make compromises. I live in Concord, New Hampshire, which is not a place I would have ever expected, but it's worked out and been a great opportunity professionally for both myself and my partner. So just to throw that out there, that you might end up moving somewhere that you would never necessarily expect. Let's see, after working at Georgetown, I spent time working at Temple University, which is a really large institution in Philadelphia, completely different from Georgetown. really helped, just like Jonesy was talking about, just stretched me and pushed me out of my comfort zone. And then now I'm up in New England and working again at a small private liberal arts school, which I think I'm biased because that's what I went to for college, but I really enjoy working one-on-one with students and supporting them through different challenges that come up. Let's see, advice I would tell myself when I was in college. It's such a hard question to think about. I wish, I think that I would have just pushed myself a little bit more on study abroad. When I was at Georgetown, there was kind of this, and I don't know if it's still something students talk about, but it was kind of like, why would you go? You're going to miss out. And now I think like, oh my gosh, I totally missed out. Like I loved being at Georgetown, and one semester away wouldn't have been the worst thing to get a different experience. So I wish I'd pushed myself a little bit more on that.
All right, Lisa.
Excellent. So I was a math major. And so as a math major, I liked everything to have a plan. And I was a math major in part because there was always a right or wrong answer. Like you could figure out if you were doing the right thing. And similarly on the Myers-Briggs, I'm an SJ. And so I like everything to be very detail oriented. And so I knew as a junior in high school that I was going to go to college somewhere and I was going to become an RA because I had learned at a high school conference what an RA was. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And so day one at Georgetown, I started my notebook, how I'm going to be better than my past RA. And I started making a list of things. I'm serious. I'm serious. Totally did this. Made this list of what I was going to do to be a great RA because I knew that this was something that I wanted to do. And I fell in love. I loved what I was doing when I was hired to be on staff in the residence halls, working with students. And it was a phenomenal experience where I met a lot of great people and built a lot of really strong relationships. And so through that experience, I was still thinking I wanted a career in something math. I didn't know what you did with math. And everybody said, will you teach? And I was like, I know I'm not going to teach at the K through 12 level. And so I didn't know what you do with math and no one could tell me, you can do whatever you want. And I knew that wasn't true, right? I couldn't be a nurse with a math major. So poking holes in that theory. But I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And so one day, one of my supervisors said to me, hey, have you thought about student affairs? And I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, you could do this as a career. And I was like, nah, really? And so I had a great opportunity to travel to some conferences with a group of staff members that I was able to really explore what that would look like for me. And so I left Georgetown and went straight to my graduate program at Miami University, which was also in college student personnel. Similarly, no expense. Like they paid me to work for them and get my degree. It was phenomenal. Don't pay for school. We can't tell you that enough. And so from Miami, I'm a person who likes to get pretty set in my ways. I'm a math major, right? There's a right or a wrong. And so I charted my path. I was going to graduate. They had positions and stair steps that you could move right up. And my goal was I was going to be the director of the residence life program at some point. Like this was where I saw myself as I was plotting my path. Well, as life would have it, I fell in love and my partner didn't live near Oxford, Ohio, the middle of nowhere. And so that was no longer an option as I was looking at graduating from my master's program. And so I ended up staying at Miami another year and working professionally. And then I looked to move closer to my partner. And so that's when I started exploring positions, found an ideal position at Kentucky University in residence life. And so that made a lot of sense, right? Like I'm still have this opportunity to climb the fence. You may be saying, well, you're not in residence life. You're right. Because as they've mentioned, life has a way of having twists and turns. And so I did the housing thing for 4 years as a hall director at NKU. I loved what I did and I loved working and living with students. It was phenomenal, but it's also draining. Those of you who live in the residence halls, you know, there are fire alarms all the time. There are bizarre parties that happen and things that are just like all hours of the night. And I was like, oh, I don't know that I want this for the rest of my career. And so I was afforded the opportunity while I was a hall director to do an internship in another office on campus. Essentially, that was what they called it. We can talk about. Basically, I volunteered my time to go and work in the career services office 1 day a week. They were super short staffed. They said, hey, we need some people. My supervisor said, sure, go do it. And I fell in love. I loved helping students answer that question that no one at Georgetown could answer for me when I was there. in part because they were trying to make me do it myself. And I realize that now, right? But that, what do you do with a math major? And so every day I get to have great conversations with students about what's important to you, what interests you, what skills do you want to use in your job, and how does that relate to the world of work? And I love the opportunity that I have to help students as they think through what steps they want to take. I'm not gonna say plan the path, because we all know that the path is going to be rocky and all over the place, but to help them kind of think about what those next steps might be and where it is that they think they want to go. If I could tell past Lisa something, I think there are two things I would tell Lisa. Number one is that values change. What's important to you is different at different stages in your life, and that's okay. When I was at Georgetown, my goal was someday I was going to be a college president. What was I thinking? Do you know the stress that's on those people? No way do I want that role now. My values changed, right? I assessed. And so there's a really great Quaker tradition, random side story here real quick, that this Quaker tradition that when you are afforded a new position, you sit down with a trusted group of advisors and they ask you why you're interested in this position. And so the story is told about a man who was working as a college professor and his goal was always to be the president of the university. They asked him to be the president and he sat down with his advisors and they said, "Why do you want to be the president?" And he said, "I want my name in the paper." And they're like, "You what?" And they're like, "What are you going to like about this job?" And he couldn't name anything. Like all he wanted was the prestige that came from that. And that really resonated with me. Like, it's not about prestige. It's not about money. It's about doing something that you love and doing something where you know and you feel like you're making a difference, and that you're meeting those goals that you have for yourself. And so I think that's the first thing. The second thing that I would tell past Lisa is that you can minister anywhere. My dad is a preacher, so I had grown up my entire life seeing my dad minister to the people in a very formal way, right? Like he went into houses and told people what they needed to do to build their relationships and to help them through troubling times and to be there during their highest and their lowest times. And I loved that. And I wanted a position that allowed me to do that. And I wasn't sure how that fit into my world of work if I wasn't at a religious institution and I wasn't doing that. And I've learned that I can be an example and I can do things in my life that is my ministry or my mission field wherever I'm at. I don't have to be in a church job to do that. Also, you can do things in your free time that you enjoy. I don't do math as a career advisor, but there are other ways that I find to stimulate that side of my brain. There are other ways that I can get involved with churches in the area, even if I'm not working at one in my current job. So those are two things I would tell past Lisa.
Awesome. Great insight. Thank you for sharing. All right, Amanda.
Round us out.
Oh.
Yep. This has been so fun to hear everyone's journey. And Lisa, I'm not gonna lie, when you're talking about fire alarms, I just had like flashbacks to night hall fire alarms, like at all hours of the day. I don't know if night hall is still in existence, but like, was that known for some late night fire alarms? Anyways, so my journey, I resonate with so many things that have already been said. My spring semester, my senior year, like I mentioned earlier, I graduated in 2008. Yeah, does it finally have AC? For basement level and first floor, that's where you gotta live, if not. But when I graduated in 2008, it was when the recession was going on, and jobs were very scarce. The last semester, my parents were like, "You should probably do an internship." And I'm like, "Yep, probably a good idea." Like, thankful for them for kind of nudging me in that. So I went to the career center on campus and was like, I don't have a resume. Like, I didn't have anything, right? And so the Holly James, who used to work there, she helped get me connected with the American Volleyball Coaches Association, which is based in Lexington. And since I was a volleyball student athlete, I was like, this makes perfect sense. And so I was able to intern there spring semester of my senior year. But like what's been mentioned, I was like, okay, my goal is to have a job by graduation and I'm going to work in sports marketing. And I had no idea what sports marketing meant, first of all. It just sounded really nice and really fun. I knew I always wanted to work in sports, but just had no idea what that meant. I actually rewind a bit, but I went to Georgetown thinking I wanted to be in sports medicine because my mom was a nurse. And so I grew up around that. Took biology first semester of freshman year in volleyball season anyways, it was a disaster. I quickly learned like science was not my thing. So anyway, so I had this plan that I wanted to have a job by graduation. Well, there were no jobs. And a lot of my peers were, one, just taking jobs to have them, right? Because they just had to, there's such a scarcity issue, or two, going to grad school. And unlike my fellow panelists, no one told me to have someone pay for your school. So I have student loan debt, but I would say for me, I enjoyed school so much more and like approached it with such a different mindset because I had a lot of work experience to lean on going into it. So anyways, getting ahead of myself, I went home, I graduated, I didn't have a job, I was living at my parents', I was working at Kirkland's Home Store part-time just to make some money, but I was looking up sporting events or just like athletic related things that were happening in Lexington, Louisville, Cincinnati every weekend, and would email the volunteer coordinator and be like, can I come? Can I come help? I want to get involved. I want to get plugged in. And so I was volunteering at the AVP beach volleyball tournament in Louisville one weekend, and the executive director of the ABCA that I worked with was there. So I got to catch up with her, and they had a position open up about 3 months after that interaction. And they reached out and they're like, hey, you still looking for a job? If we have an entry-level role, would you want to apply? So was able to do that. So it went and moved to Lexington and worked at the ABCA for about 5 years. It was such an incredible job to have. First job out of college, I had this really strong female mentor leading me, and she's still a mentor for me to this day. And so I'd kind of gotten to a point where I knew I wanted to get on a college campus and kind of see what the world of college athletics was all about. And so leaned into my network again. And the Indiana volleyball coach at the time had just hired someone to be her director of volleyball operations, and he was at South Carolina. So she was like, hey, South Carolina's open. Would you want to go there? And I'm like, sure, why not? Like, I grew up in Kentucky, obviously went to school there. It's all I'd known, but I also knew that I wanted to see something different. And I wanted to get out and push myself and stretch myself and see what else was out there, because home would always be available. So my boyfriend at the time, now husband, we've been dating for like a year. We packed up and moved to South Carolina. We didn't know a single person. We lived together for the first time and both had new jobs. And we're still here to tell that story. So everything worked out, but it was really scary. You know, we were like 26 years old or so, and just really took this leap of faith and went. And so the role I had, director of volleyball ops for the volleyball program, obviously, and was really just kind of like the main logistic person behind the whole operations of the program. So everything from our travel and practices and meals, just like I kept the wheel rolling so that the coaches could coach and recruit and the players could play and be student athletes. I love that role. I quickly learned that I had no control of my own destiny as a non-coaching member on a coaching staff. So my job was dictated by the results on the court, but I had no control over the results on the court. So as Lisa, I can like completely relate with like your math brain of like, I have no control over this situation. It's completely stressing me out. But I learned a ton. I went about halfway through my time at South Carolina. I started my master's through Tiffin University in Ohio. They had a program that was fully remote, and it was an MBA with a sport management concentration. So for me, I felt like it was kind of the best of both worlds. And so I finished that, and I was kind of starting to see the writing on the wall with my head coach, if I'm being like totally transparent. And I was like, I need to make a change before a change is made for me. And so was really aggressively searching for jobs. And quite frankly, like the lack of balance that I had in that job, really, I was not in a great place, right? Like I was just applying for anything because I was like, I've got to get out of here. And that is not a good place to be in. And so now I've like learned for myself, like what kind of got me to that place so that I can avoid, you know, those lack of boundaries or those type of work climates that I don't want to get myself in. And so I found an opportunity at Northwestern University, right outside of Chicago, that was within the athletic department, and it was leading a career development team just for student athletes. And so took that, again, we didn't know anybody, just took that leap of faith and went. I think that's the beauty of college athletics, is it like pushes you to just dive headfirst and can take you anywhere. And so we went to Chicago and just like talk about a transformative time in my life. Like I was pushed and challenged more in my career than I ever had been to that point in the best possible ways. And so I was there for about 5 years, and then some leadership changes started to happen, and it was just kind of becoming very apparent that I needed to make a change. And so while I was there, my husband, and I think that the pandemic really kind of expedited this, but I realized that we wanted to get back closer to home, right? We missed our family, like we'd been away and done the whole thing and loved it, but like we wanted to try and make some moves to get back closer to home. So one of my close friends at Northwestern, I was talking to her and I'm like, hey, do you know anybody that works at the University of Kentucky? Like, ideal situation, I would love to work there. She's like, funny enough, she was a tennis student athlete at West Virginia, and her athletic academic advisor at the time now oversees the whole athletic academic advising here at Kentucky. And he's still a mentor for her to this day. So she put me in touch with him. We got coffee. He brought his colleague who was in the role that I'm in now. And we just built a relationship for like 2 years. And I was very clear with her of like, Steph, I know the stars would probably have to align in terms of the role and timing, but if something were to ever open up at UK, like I would love to be there. And I want you to know that. And sure enough, that's what happened. Her boss left last summer. She got promoted and had this position open up. And she called me and was like, hey, if you're ready, like this is going to happen. Right. And so really, I mean, several people have mentioned networking, and like that is literally the theme of my professional journey. And it's just being willing to make an ask, right? Or just like ask questions and tell people your purpose and tell people your intentions, and be willing to kind of like put yourself out there as it relates to that. So I think, so I just started here. I moved back in January, and I just started this role in early, like January 10th. So it's awesome to be back. But I think all in all, my advice to my 18 to 22-year-old self in college is like, it's totally okay not to have it figured out. Like, if you would have told me at 22 that the job I'm doing now is like, that's what I would be doing. One, it really didn't exist, to be honest. And two, I just had no idea the possibilities that existed. The other thing is like, trust yourself and just freaking go for it. Like you have your whole life to do all the things that you may be thinking about now. And like, some of that may happen now, some of it happen down the road, but like, just go for it and dive in head first.
Great, wonderful advice from all of you panelists. So we are diving into the 12 o'clock hour, but I do want to see if any of our students have questions for any of our panelists. Thank you all so much. Again, you hit on things that we have heard every single #Career Ready session. The power of experiential learning opportunities, internships. Amanda, I love the story about you just looking at those events that were happening and calling up the volunteer person to provide your services and what that has brought to you professionally. I know that many of us, and I'm saying us, myself included, we're in the realm of not even knowing that higher education was a profession that you could pursue. And here we are. And so I appreciate your time and just all that you have brought to our time together. So anyone have any questions? I know Olivia has a question that she wants to ask, and we will wrap up with that.
You all are phenomenal. Happy belated International Women's Month, by the way.
Yes.
You all are dynamic. It's just been so wonderful to hear you all share your experiences. To my housing crew, I started my higher education journey in housing, and I feel like we're all interconnected through some of the struggles. You know what I mean? Good times, but it does have an expiration date. I will say that. But you learn a lot. But I'm just so thankful for you all, and I do ask that you all continue to support Georgetown, and we need you all support now more than ever. But what you all are doing today, that's showing support for us, so I truly appreciate it. I do like to ask alumni this question, whether they're coming on campus to speak or speaking virtually. What is your favorite Georgetown College moment? I just love to hear relics of your time here and things that may have been appropriate or inappropriate, whatever you feel comfortable to share. And I know we're almost at the hour, but I don't know who wants to go first, but I'll let you all take it away. But I would love to hear your favorite Georgetown College moment.
Oh my God, I'm going first. There's so, okay, I'll go last. It's fine.
No, I'm just kidding. I knew you were going to be so excited to share.
God, there's so many, but definitely like the amount, this is what I actually was sharing with friends. Like, I feel like I miss a lot of ways, like goofing off and having fun. Like the pandemic is hard. My job is hard. I have 2 little kids. It's hard. And like, I feel like no other time in my life are you surrounded by just your pals constantly. There's always something to do. You're always being supported. I mean, really, you've got it good. So let me, if you're feeling like you just need a reminder of that. But yeah, just goofing off and having fun. That was definitely, those are the memories that come up. But one for sure, Songfest. One of my favorite professors of all times who encouraged me to be a better writer. She's passed away since. Dr. Mary Brady was like so influential in my life. And we dressed up like her. We dressed up like Kepi, who's a big reason why I do higher ed today. And we just like, it's like so fun to just make fun of them. But it was all built on relationship and rapport and having a good time. But the competition like between sororities and like, it's so stupid, but it's so fun. And all of those things are just great memories that I have for sure.
I'll jump in next, kind of tying off of that. I agree. Like some of my favorite memories are just like sitting in the hallways of the Katie house, just like doing nothing, but having the best time ever. I would say some of my favorite memories are chapel day. I was a Gamma Chi one year, so that was really fun to kind of like be on the other side of that. But I don't know if this is still the case, but like when I was in school, we as KDs were a bit extra when it came to chapel day. So we had a very large time, and it was just so fun. Like we were just ridiculous and made this like ridiculous grand entrance because we thought, I think we all were, yeah, for sure. But you know what I mean? It was just like, you just had so much pride in that moment, and probably to anyone else that's not in Greek life, you're just like, what are these people doing? But you didn't care. Like you just were having so much fun together and celebrating, and like this idea of like sisterhood and just kind of like bringing new people into the fold with you was just really special. So it was like super basic, but really, really fun looking back on it.
I'm happy to jump in. A lot of memories are popping up. One that actually happened when I was an area coordinator, but was still at Georgetown, so I'm going to count it. In Knight Hall, where first year women used to live, I don't know if it's being used as a residential space, but we used to host a really fun event called Knight Hall Halloween, and community members would bring their kiddos in and they would trick or treat through the hallways. It was always a lot of fun. We would decorate. Anyway, one year when I was serving as an area coordinator at night, one of my residents was dressed as a banana. Pretty awesome costume, right? Well, somebody that a male student who I think was living in Anderson, so like right down the street, came over, somehow got into night and was dressed as a gorilla and was chasing my student who was dressed as a banana. And I just thought, can't make this stuff up. This is so random. And I heard running from my apartment. I went upstairs and like, oh my goodness, how wild. Only Halloween on a college campus, right?
When I think of one like quintessential memory of Georgetown, it is the last day. We had to turn our keys in, and a group of us had gathered on East Campus in one of our friends' apartments. And we had this very like surreal, like friends goodbye moment. And it was kind of like this, you all look at each other, you look around the room, like it really was like TV-esque. And like we've like come back together since then, and we've talked about like, did this really happen or did we dream this? But it was like just so perfect. Like the keys were handed off to whoever the staff member was. And it wasn't even my apartment. I was a hall director for Flower Hall at the time. But we just kind of had this surreal, like walking out, like this is it, like this chapter is closing, this group in this way will never join together again. And it was just this really kind of like perfect bow on a present that was my 4 years at Georgetown.
I'll be really quick because I know we're getting close to 12, but if I had to just pick like one memory from Georgetown, it would be meeting my husband. We were actually in the same orientation group. So first day there, we met, and then like 8 months later, we started dating. but met my best friend for life. And we had, our whole kind of love story playing out there at Georgetown, leading up to getting married.
Well, thank you ladies so much. Those were wonderful stories. Ashley, your question, no, we still have Night Hall, but no one currently lives there. That hall is actually offline. We're hoping to get it renovated. We need a few more million. So if you all know anybody that wants to give us a few more million, definitely let us know. But we do hope to have Night Hall up and running here soon, after it gets renovated, of course, here soon, because I think there's something to be said about having the first year experience on main campus, being able to have the first year women at night, first year men at Anderson. So the first year students are actually living in Allen, Collier, Flowers, and Pierce. Is that right? Pierce, I believe. So they're hanging out on South Campus right now. So which is much different from the experience that you all had when you were here. But again, thank you for your time and your talent and your treasure. This has been wonderful. If there's anything that the alumni office can ever do for you guys, please let me know. And with that being said, I'm going to yield to Faith.
Great. Thank you all again so much. Students, I do have the Nexus code for you. And we will hopefully, if you guys are good, do a photo with our alums. We've done that every session. So as you're getting your info pulled up on your phone, be thinking about that before you head out for lunch. The code is 166592.
Don't tweet that out to your friends. You were here. You earned it.
I was gonna say, thank you guys for letting us relive some of our glory days.
So again, it's 166592. And if you don't mind to just pop up to the front, we'll do a countdown. Janie, would you mind to take the photo? And I will stop the live stream.
It's like Georgetown needs like a hand signal. I've been at UT Austin too long. Like I instinctively was like, all right.